it says. No, I'm George Garvey. I'm the acting dean of the law school, and it's my pleasure to welcome all of you to be here for this presentation and to thank the presenters so much for coming back and sharing some of their experience and insights with us. The clinic is a critical, integral part of this law school. We're one of the birthplaces of clinical education, and it means a lot to us, both in terms of the mission, serving those who need legal help, but for those of you that are students, it also provides you with extraordinary educational opportunities. And that's what this panel today is about. It's really to give you some insights into how helpful this exercise of clinical education is. Not simply as an opportunity to do some good for people who need help, but to prepare yourself for the real world of legal practice. It's in the trenches, it's doing the work, and it prepares you in a way that those who are doing hiring respect highly. So with that, my job is simply to welcome you, to thank you for all for being here, for participating, and let me turn the podium over to Professor Martin, who will introduce our speakers today. And I've got to teach a class tonight, so I'm running. All right, thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Back here. Hi, my name is Lisa Martin. I teach in the Families in the Law Clinic, which is one of 4 programs within Columbus Community Legal Services. Thank you all for being here tonight. I wanted to welcome back our panel of alums who each have enrolled in one of the clinical programs during their time at the law school before they graduated. I'm actually going to turn the microphone over to Leah Quayle. She is currently working with Columbus Community Legal Services as a postgraduate fellow, but she completed the Families in the Law Clinic while she was enrolled in the law school here, and she will be facilitating our panel tonight. She'll have each of the panelists introduce themselves to you so they can share what they think is most important for you to know, and then she will ask them some questions, and then we'll open it up and invite you here to also ask questions of our panelists. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Lisa. As she said, I will be moderating today's panel. I will pose questions to the panel as a whole and direct questions to individual panelists as well. If you would like to answer a question that is directed to another panelist, please feel free to jump in. We will leave 15 minutes at the end for questions from the audience. To begin, if each of the panelists can introduce themselves, give a brief description of your clinic experience and any positions you've held since graduating from CUA. Kristen, if you'd like to begin.
Hi, my name is Kristin Hawaiian. I graduated in 2009. When I was in clinic, I was with the Families in the Law Clinic. I had 2 long-term cases when I was at Falk. One was a client who previous students had helped get a civil protective order, and we helped her with her long-term custody case. And then the other case was assisting a client getting her permanent residency through the VAWA process. And right now, well, I guess once I graduated, I was a postgraduate fellow with the CCLS doing a clinic that we did run, I'm still talking in present tense. We run out of the emergency shelter for domestic violence victims in the District of Columbia. Doing that, I assisted Lisa and students with basically teaching survivors and residents of the clinic, of the shelter, about their legal rights in terms of civil protective orders, housing rights, benefits, things like that. I then began a clerkship at the DC Superior Court, working for magistrate judges Mary Grace Rook and Janet E. Albert, who do juvenile neglect and abuse cases. After that, I had took some time off, I guess, not on purpose, but I did pro bono work through the DC Volunteer Lawyers Project, representing survivors of domestic violence and dating violence in their civil protective orders in DC Superior Court. And now I'm a staff attorney with the House of Ruth, Maryland, I'm located in Montgomery County. I staff we have 3 legal clinics in Montgomery, 2 offices, and 3 courthouses that we work out of Montgomery County. I staff the circuit court office where we have victims of intimate partner violence come in to get protective and peace orders. And with that, I'm litigating cases pretty much every single day, helping clients get protective and peace orders, enforce their orders through civil contempt, and modify their orders as they need to.
Great, thank you. Patrick?
Hi, my name is Patrick Jordan, and I participated in the general practice clinic in 2007 and had a chance to work with 2 clients. One was an individual who we helped with home renovation, a shoddy home renovation that was done by a contractor that didn't follow proper procedure, and we were able to settle with the individual and collect some damages for her, and also was able to work with a client who we drafted a will for and who we were able to get Social Security disability benefits for an adopted grandson. So I really enjoyed the clinic. Since my time at Catholic, I've spent 2 years as a Presidential Management Fellow for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, working in the Community Planning and Development Office, which we say is the UD of HUD. It's the urban development side. Been there for 5 years now, and this is my last week at HUD. I'm about to move to a nonprofit housing developer, an intermediary that funds affordable housing across the country called Enterprise Community Partners. And I also teach becoming a lawyer course on Tuesday evenings at Catholic.
My name is Melissa Naka. I graduated in May of 2011, so I'm a fairly new graduate compared to these 2 individuals next to me. But I came to law school initially wanting to practice immigration law, and so I knew that I wanted to do a clinic because even though COA doesn't have an immigration clinic, I knew that the Families in the Law Clinic does do immigration cases. And so I enrolled in the Families in the Law Clinic my first semester of 3L year, and made sure that I was, able to be the student attorney and appear before court. I had 2 cases with VALC. One was to obtain a CPO, a civil protection order, before DC Superior Court for an individual who's, was pretty much just like me, just a young woman who was, suffering the abuse of her boyfriend. That part is not like me, but there was a lot of counseling involved in this case, and ultimately she withdrew and did not pursue the CPO, but we did get a temporary protective order for her, which was a great accomplishment, I think. The second case was an immigration case for a VAWA self-petition, and the individual that I represented was not an English speaker, and so we worked through an interpreter, which was an extremely challenging experience, but it just kind of, forced me and my partner to really be patient and go through all the questions very carefully. Like I said, I graduated in 2011, and since then, until November, I was doing some temporary work. Part of it, I went back to Falk to help out Lisa with some projects, but another was an internship with an immigration firm. Now, since November, I'm an immigration law fellow at a small immigration firm in DuPont Circle called Lichtman & Elliott, and I represent U.S. employers, foreign nationals, in obtaining employment-based immigration cases, employment-based non-immigrant status, which are temporary workers, and marriage-based permanent residents, and a variety of other things, including VAWA cases.
Hi, I'm Bob Yates. I graduated in 2011. I worked for CCLS 2010 during the school year, and then I worked during the summer of 2010 as well. And I had, I think, 2 or 3 major cases. And one of them I got a chance to follow a client from day 1 in January when I started in that semester to the end of the summer. I gave testimony in front of DC City Council, which was pretty neat. And then I appeared in a case. The client had a child support case. So SNAP benefits and child support. Since graduation, I worked as a fellow, like I said, in 2011, and I now work for CSIO, which is the Center for Consumer Information and Insurance Oversight. And basically, we were designed to implement the Affordable Care Act. I guess what we like to call the organization right now is flashpoint of misery, because there's just been so much pressure, so much of a spotlight on the organization and implementing the Affordable Care Act. And so specifically, I work to help stand up health insurance exchanges in states that I'm assigned to, which are insurance exchanges are basically online portals to shop and compare health insurance options, kind of like Travelocity. So I also help administer lots of federal grant money, and so my job role's a lot of breadth in my job role. So
Thank you.
that's it. Thanks.
My first question is for all of the panelists. What skills did you develop while at CCLS that have benefited you in your careers? You feel free to jump in.
I think one of the, probably two of the largest skills were the practical litigation skills I learned at CCLS. Drafting, discovery, prepping for prepping testimony, evidence gathering, those are all big parts of actually practicing in the courtroom every day, and also learning how to relate to your clients. CCLS's clients are from indigent populations, so a lot of us, it's about learning to check your privilege and trying to relate to your client, but also setting up some boundaries, not giving them your cell phone number. It's a good idea. But just being able to learn about them as a person and really try and see what's going on through their eyes while still advocating for them pretty zealously. So I think those and maybe relating to other attorneys. There's lots of student attorneys in the organization, and my student attorney partner and I, Chris and I, had an opposing counsel for our custody case who was quite slippery, so learning how to relate to him and the judges as well was a pretty good skill that I use every single day.
Would anyone else like to add to that?
Maybe just in addition to everything that Kristen said, it was a great answer. A couple of key skills I felt like have really helped me throughout my career were kind of the organizational skills and some of the problem-solving skills I had a chance to work on in the clinic. Just the task of kind of working with a case file, developing, in this folder, there are things that need to be in such a way that someone who's taken this 6 months from now, a year from now, needs to be able to understand the work that I had done. And working in the federal government, it's a similar type of thing where I need to be able to understand what folks have done prior to me, and they need to be able to understand things that I've worked on. And from a problem-solving standpoint, the idea that, in law school we get so much of this kind of exam work where it's fact, it's the IRAC stuff, you're doing the issue and the rule and the analysis, but that sometimes you need to think a lot more broadly about kind of what the circumstances are of the person that you're representing, and kind of what's the best means, kind of thinking outside the box, what's going to really help them, and being able to kind of work through that throughout the course of a semester, make changes to what that looks like, knowing that a month from now you're not going to face the same circumstances, and having a more dynamic type situation rather than kind of the static law school situation that we're always given.
Melissa and Bob, would you recommend a clinic to someone who does not plan to litigate?
Yeah, I would. I've taken a number of skills from clinic. I'm not practicing as an attorney, and obviously that means I'm not litigating. I actually wrote down some things that I took away from the clinic. Negotiating skills was a big one, and that can help in many arenas. I have to do that because I work with states individually. I work with governor's offices, departments of insurance, and when you're trying to get states to do, I know this brings up a lot of touchy federalism issues, but when you're trying to get states to comply with federal laws, you have to be able to negotiate in some capacity. And so the negotiation portion of, I guess we did that mostly in the classroom, really came in handy and looked good on my resume. And then, like you said, client management, building rapport, just managing the caseload, preparing for trial, and then the actual trial itself sort of helps you with effective communication. And then obviously the research, writing and reading. I mean, all those things are not just law practice skills. I think they can be applied to almost any job you want to do. So.
And I would also say absolutely. It's not just about litigation. I think for me, I never had an interest in getting into litigation. I was actually absolutely afraid of it. And but I made sure that, this was the opportunity that I had to at least practice it. And, once you're out in the real world, you can do whatever you want. But law school is really the place to really maximize on your opportunities and do whatever you can to learn and experience as many skills as possible. And like everyone said, there's so many different skills that you can learn from clinic. It's not just about litigation. It's about representing clients. It's representing people, people in your community, and how to speak to them, how to communicate to them, how to, get the information you want from them. And it's just a matter of, interviewing skills, like you said, negotiating skills. It's a variety of different skills that are all useful. And I just wanted to say that the organization skills are extremely important. I didn't even think of that. But I actually got thrown into my position because the person who had it before me abruptly left. And I contacted the firm just in time, and they said, we needed somebody yesterday for this position. Your email comes at a great time. But and I got there, and it was just in the middle of everything, and I had no idea. The files were not as organized as I had hoped, and I was thinking about the clinic, the tabs, or like the sheet in the front that says where to find what, and you could just follow it so carefully, and that was definitely something that I use now, and it's very important to know what happened in the past, because so many other attorneys have worked on it over so many years, and especially in immigration cases, which I work on, people have very long immigration histories that go many, many, many years back, and you have to be able to organize everything to know exactly what's going on with their case. So,
Patrick, what would you say to students who are concerned about balancing the time commitment of clinic with their more traditional courses?
So I'd say that you do need to recognize, I think, that clinic is a big workload, that it is going to be a lot of work, that hopefully having spent some time in law school, you're now becoming a little more efficient in terms of how you read cases and how you prep for class. I think it's also helpful from the standpoint of being a lawyer is time intensive. It takes a lot of hard work, and so to do things right, you're going to have to spend some time on it. You'll get better at it. That's part of the practice. So you may feel a little bit more overwhelmed in September or early in the semester than you will later in the semester. I think that gives you that opportunity to see how you're growing. It may be the kind of thing where you want to lighten up a little bit on your other work, or know that maybe I won't take the tough courses that I was looking at for this year during the same semester I'm taking the clinic, but it's also, I'd say, well worth it. And it's a matter of kind of individually just finding that balance of how much time do I have to spend on my other work versus what I'm going to do in clinic.
As a follow-up question, how would you compare the learning experience in clinic to the learning experience in the classroom for other courses?
Thank you. I'd say it's incredibly complementary. So, we have so much time in the classroom where we're learning about criminal law, we're learning about civil procedure, we're learning about evidence, but we don't have a chance to really practice it. I don't think you get that opportunity other than experiences that are outside of the normal schoolwork. So unless you've got some great internship working for a law firm or for a judge, you're not going to see anything along those lines. And even if you do have that, the experience in the clinic of being able to work as a student attorney, I think is very unique, and it's very complementary to everything else you're doing in your other classwork.
And my next question is for Kristen. How did your clinic experience influence your job search and your career path?
I feel like if you looked at my clinic experience, it just makes sense how my job path has gone. I would say by third year I figured out that I wanted to litigate. Well, I guess by second year when I applied for clinic, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be in the courtroom. I knew I wanted to work one-on-one with clients. So clinic just kind of fit that. And since then, that's pretty much how it's gone. I searched for jobs. I knew I wanted to do public interest law, and I searched for jobs that paycheck wouldn't be great, but I knew I would be doing, I guess, morally satisfying work. So that kind of influenced where I was looking. I didn't always necessarily want to do domestic violence or family law. I also had a really strong interest in doing animal-related law, but that kind of steered me towards certain organizations or certain websites. Doing clinic was, I don't think I would have gotten my clerkship if I hadn't done clinic. I was able to talk about the skills that I developed in clinic. I was able to talk about how I went to a courthouse. I knew where to go to file a motion. I knew how to go back to a judge's chambers. I knew how to speak to the courtroom clerk. Those are things that you don't learn necessarily. I didn't learn those in civil procedure. I learned how to count the 10-day motion rule, but I didn't learn how to actually do it until I went to clinic. And the judges I had were specifically looking for a law student who had done those kind of things. So that influenced it. And now what I do is pretty much kind of what I did over the course of clinic, only I do it in a much shorter time span. And I think it's pretty much going to influence the rest of my career and how I search for courses or jobs in the future.
To all of our panelists, do you think that when applying for and interviewing for jobs that your clinic experience gave you an edge over other applicants, and how? And Kristen, just give some examples. No, that works great.
Yeah, I think that appearing before judges is really a bonus on your resume. The skills it requires leading up to the appearance, and then sort of the communication that you have to, the effective communication skills that you have to use while you're appearing before a judge, or and knowing the ins and outs of the court system, and when to go back to chambers, all that stuff is like valuable. And that helped me, I think.
Anyone else like to add to that?
I think it's a lot of interviewing is also being able to, share stories and share something that is new and interesting and unique. And I think when you're actually representing clients in law school, you obviously have unique stories to share. You come across new things, and it's just, storytelling, and not be boring, obviously, in an interview, but it just sort of, it kind of paints a picture of your personality and, the fact that you were interested in something like that, and, all the cases that you dealt with, and all the skills that you gained, obviously, would be helpful as well.
And then if anyone is able to speak to how your clinic experience affected your opinion of the value of pro bono work both during law school or after you began your career. If anyone would like to jump in.
Sure. I'd say it just gives you a great feeling about knowing that that what you're doing is benefiting someone who otherwise wouldn't have the means to make happen what's happening. And then I think that when you're representing a client who maybe doesn't have the same means as another person to get good representation, and you're able to actually deliver that good representation where you've spent a lot of time, put in a lot of effort, and kind of made your best effort at doing something, that you were able to see kind of that often that person is someone who even benefits more than maybe an average individual from that legal representation. And you're able to see kind of how important it is that the way our justice system works, that folks have good representation, not just when they're facing a criminal situation and where they've got kind of the right to representation, but even in times where they face an economic hardship and where without pro bono, without legal services, where there wouldn't be an opportunity for them to have their time in court. Yeah,
after I did clinic for a semester in the spring of 2010, I went on the New Orleans trip. I did pro bono work there, so my work with the clinic definitely, we worked with the Orleans Parish Public Defender's Office, I believe. So I guess just seeing clients who really needed the help, who would not have been able to get it otherwise, and the satisfaction that comes along with actually being able to help them. And sometimes the frustration that comes along with not being able to solve all their problems. Those are all sort of driving forces behind wanting to do pro bono work. And after the clinic, before I started working for the summer of 2010, I went to New Orleans, and so it encouraged me to do that, and I recommend you do that if that, I assume that trip is still going on here. So, yeah.
Kristen, what effect, if any, did the connections that you made while in the clinic have on your professional life as a whole?
Well, there's, I guess, a lot of different connections. For instance, Lisa was my supervising attorney, and I kind of think of her as, when I think of what I would like to do, it's kind of I think of Lisa. So I know throughout the last few years,
we all do.
I email or call because I'm like, I need advice on something. But the fellow student attorneys you work with it's a bunch of great minds, and everybody wants. I mean, everybody's there doing something different, but everybody wants to help people or develop their skills. And I still keep in contact with a lot of the student attorneys that I met through clinic became much closer than my section, because you're with someone. My clinic partner Chris and I, we spent a lot of time together working on our cases, and we still keep in touch. And a lot of the connections I made through clinic, everybody's doing something different. I have a friend who's a law librarian who, if I was ever interested in something like that, I could talk to him. Or I have friends who do public defender work or state's attorneys or LAG work. So I know that a lot of people I went to law school with I could reach out to, but the clinic students is kind of a special connection that they were in the trenches with you and they understood what you were going through. So you kind of develop a pretty good bond that way. And developing connections in the courthouse through the court system, and meeting other agencies and social services providers. When I was doing clinic, we worked a lot with my sister's place, and Lee, which is no longer with us, but you get to know more of the agencies in the city and who provides services to clients, maybe who's doing a really great job, and you might refer a client to them, or who's not doing so great, and you might try and steer a client in another direction. Or if your client needs to get access to food right away, or some kind of emergency money, you might know who to call. So it kind of gives you an idea of the umbrella of services that different kinds of people can have in the district. So that's been really invaluable to my work now.
For everyone, how did your clinic experience influence your thinking about the kind of lawyer that you wanted to be?
I'd say that I knew that I didn't want to practice. When I came to clinic, I was really excited that I was kind of had the opportunity to knowing that even though I wasn't going to practice, that I would have a chance to kind of be in a courtroom, be in front of a judge. But it also, for me, it helped me see kind of what public policy means for people that need the help from government. And I think that you can turn the news and hear about folks talking about unnecessary regulation. That's kind of a common thing that you often hear folks complain about, is how the government's regulating this or that. But I think that one way to look at that is that very often an unnecessary regulation is really a protection for another person. So in the case that we had, there's a situation where an individual had done really shoddy work on a renovation for a woman's house and had collected all the money up front in violation of the law. And because of violating that regulation, we were able to get the money back and actually even collect triple damages for her after this years-long process of trying to track down this individual and being able to see kind of how public policy, which I knew was going to be my focus, how public policy really helps benefit, particularly in the situation where I was working with low and moderate income families. It helped me confirm, my clinical experience helped me confirm that what I was doing from a career standpoint was going to be what I really wanted to do, and hopefully beneficial.
Okay. My last question is, what is your fondest memory of working at Columbus Community Legal Services? We can start with Bob.
I would say after my first trial appearance, I just felt great because of all the prep that went into it. Just spent a lot of long hours here. I think it came during the summer that I worked here, and so all the work that went into that, all the mooting, and then to go in and have the hearing go well, just felt really good. And then of course all the times that I was able to help the specific client that I had for the entire time that I worked there, it's just, every time you help someone and you see that you can help someone, feels great. So a lot of that happens when you work with CCLS.
Melissa?
I don't really have one memory, but my experience working with my partner and the fact that, you know, it was just a lot of time together, and I remember before trial or before our CPO case, so we just prepared, you know, we prepared the trial binder and everything, and we were here very, very late the night before, but, you know, we never said, oh, I want to get out of here or anything like that. We were not going to leave until we were done with everything, and we had no complaints, you know, and it was just extremely fun to belong to, you know, it was like working in a firm, and it was just nice to be able to stay in the clinic, physically stay in the clinic and be comfortable and, you know, just make it your own space and work very hard there and utilize all the resources there. And just working with my partner there was just a really good experience, even though it was only for a semester. I wish I could have done more than one semester.
Patrick?
The memory that sticks out most for me is we had a chance to drop off the check for our client, and seeing her face light up to have this issue that had been hanging over her head for years be resolved, and she gave both my partner and I each this small plant. It was just a really nice gesture. I'm not sure if that was a violation of CDC policy, but it was just really nice. And you know, I literally took the plant home and planted it in our front yard. And kind of every day when I walked in, was reminded of the generosity of our client and kind of the feeling I had when we were able to do a good job representing her.
Kristen?
It's really nice. I think my fondest memory was when my partner Chris and I, our immigration client, had to come into the city to go to IUTA, which is in Adams Morgan, and she didn't have transportation. So we offered her to take her in, and we went out, and the home she lived in was donated to her by her church. She showed us her home and the pictures of her kids, and it was really nice. You know, she'd been coming to the office for so long, and we'd known her for almost a year at this point. And we'd only communicated with her mostly over the phone, so it was really nice to get to know her and her family. And we drove into the city, and she was in the car with us. And then, you know, we helped her out at IUTA. And then Chris and I went and had lunch, and it was just really cool to have that experience with, you know, it's not always like that as an attorney. So it was really nice having her be so grateful to us, but also us being really grateful to her for letting us into her lives like that, into her life like that. It was really nice. Also, what Melissa said, it's really nice to have your own office space outside of that locker that's downstairs. It's really cool to be able to get away from everybody else, not go to the library, but actually go somewhere and be able to work and not get distracted, except for maybe by someone in the office putting pictures of cats on the wall or something. But that needs to do.
That concludes my questions. At this time, we welcome questions from the audience for our panelists.
Melissa, but for everybody also, I'm really interested in immigration, and I was wondering how much you guys request cases that dealt with that, or if it was just lucky that you got an immigration case while you were.
I mean, it's not really a matter of, you know, how much. You go in there and you tell them what you want to do, and they will do everything they can to accommodate. You know, they obviously want you to have the best experience in clinic, so it's not, you know, it's not like, oh, you're limited to only these cases. If you want to do, you know, divorce cases, then you have to request it, you know, and it's really just you have to keep that go-getter attitude and just go in there and be like, I'm interested in immigration. I really want to do an immigration case. What do you have? And then, you know, they'll do everything they can to accommodate that. So.
Any other questions?
This is for Kristin. What differences did you notice between representing clients as a student attorney versus as an actual attorney?
Well, at CCLS, I had a lot more time, I think, to get to know my client, which was a really nice luxury that I don't have as much anymore. It's a nice kind of safe space to get to know how you deal with clients and how you litigate cases, whereas once you are a practicing attorney, that that time frame shrinks a lot, and it's kind of, you get a case, you figure out what you want to do with it. With CCLS, we were challenged a lot more to think about our cases in different ways that I try to do now, but a lot of it is really practically, can I spend all of this time on my case? So I really, working with clients that way I really like that, being able to really get to know them and sink my teeth into a case and have them get to know me a little bit and develop a rapport that I don't always get to do now.
Any other questions?
This is just for everybody on the panel. I was wondering what effect that participating in the clinic had on your overall law school experience.
I think it was a great aspect of law school. I think that what affected me most, I'd say, kind of the top two opportunities I had in law school were clinic and the Law and Public Policy program, LPP. And that kind of through those two experiences really kind of shaped what I thought I'd like to do moving forward. It's what helped me kind of see what was available and also kind of narrow down, through an experience rather than just through kind of what I thought it was interesting in the classroom.
Anyone else like to answer?
I would say it completely fulfilled my law school experience. I don't think that learning in the classroom, I think it's very limited. And the practical skills, obviously, you can take a course and learn the skills, but you never put them into practice. And even in a setting where, trial prep course, you get, a case to work on, but it's not real. It's never really real. And then you don't really get the same sort of feedback. If you ask a client a question and you don't get the answer you're, asking for, then you have to change the questioning, to get that answer. And that's not something that you can learn in a classroom. And I always, I have a lot of friends in med school, or were in med school, and I was always jealous of their rotations and how they get to, actually do that for 2 full years. And I was wondering why law school doesn't have that, and I think that clinic is the way to do it. And I know you drew a little bit of an distinction between externships and clinic, but I think that externships, you're still assisting an attorney in reading, writing, or not reading, but writing and research, but you are the attorney in a clinic, and you have the responsibilities. The supervisors are there to guide you, but they don't ever give you the answers. And that's part of it's frustrating, but it's obviously the part of clinic that makes it special. So,
any other questions? Well, that concludes our panel. Thank you very much for coming. If you would like to learn more about Columbus Community Legal Services, please feel free to visit our website, which is accessible from the law school's main page, or feel free to stop by our information tables. We'll be tabling throughout October in the atrium. Pre-registration deadline for spring 2013 is October 30th. And for our alumni and our current students, I just want to remind you to join our LinkedIn page, which is accessible from our law school website, so that you can keep in touch with your colleagues and take advantage of our alumni network. Thank you very much.